John Olson. Welcome to Next Stop from the city with the ultimate American experience. Welcome to Next Stop from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the ultimate American experience. On this episode of Next Stop, we'll experience monuments, museums, local music, and so much more. The fun starts now. One of my favorite things about hosting Next Stop is I get to try new things. Today, we're going to tour D.C. on Segways.
All right, guys, welcome to Bike and Roll. If you guys just gather around, we're going to go over a few things about the Segway. My name is Jeffrey. I'll be your guide this afternoon. Once you get on, it's a fairly intuitive machine, but there's a small adjustment period. You just want to step on one foot and then the other, and it'll balance like that. Another important thing to notice when you're getting on the Segway is where your feet are. If your feet are too forward, the Segway is going to automatically go forward. If your feet are too backwards, the Segway is going to automatically go back. You want to just step up onto the platform here. Yeah. Oops, there you go. You good?
Yep.
All right. All right. So come back. Oops, your turn. Now. All right, Kelsey. In this direction here. Good. All right, everyone's feeling good? Let's go. So this is the Navy Memorial here. We've got 4 different fountains representing 4 of the different oceans. The memorial itself, there's one statue over there that's called the Lone Sailor. Represents anyone who has ever served, is serving, or will serve in the United States Navy. I can tell you guys a little bit about the Canadian Embassy, if you want. It was opened in 1988. It's a very fancy building, a very expensive building. We've got 12 columns around here, around the whisper room, which is the echo chamber that we'll go up to in a minute. And if you make loud noises,
Stress buster!
You can hear it echo.
Echo!
Throughout the chamber. So this is the United States Capitol building. Some people think it's the White House. They're wrong. So originally it was a much smaller building. You can see the lighter color marble here represents the original building. The statue on top is called Freedom. It's facing east as it goes, people say, so the sun will never set on the face of freedom. So this is the Smithsonian Castle. The castle now functions as a visitor center. You can go in, get information about the different museums, where to go, plan your trip.
What's your favorite aspect about D.C.?
One of the things I like about D.C. is that it's a planned city, that it's laid out in a grid.
This is a beautiful city. It's planned very well. And what a great way to see it. Copenhagen might be the city of bikes, but Washington, D.C. is the city of Segways.
This is our 10th year in business, and we mostly did bike tours and bike rentals. And when I started, I had 50 bikes, and now we have 700.
Whoa.
And so now I have 10 Segways, and we'll see how many I have in 10 years.
Ranked 7th on the list of America's favorite architecture, the Lincoln Memorial honors our 16th U.S. President, Abraham Lincoln. It has been in the site of many famous speeches, including Martin Luther King's 1963 speech, I Have a Dream. The memorial is administered by the U.S. Park Service and is open 24 hours a day for your enjoyment. We're at the President's Gallery by Madame Tussauds in Washington, D.C., the only location where you can get face-to-face with all 44 U.S. presidents. Before we meet the presidents, Henry, let's meet this lady, Madame Tussauds.
Madame Tussauds was born in Strasbourg, Germany in 1761. She got her start making wax figures for the French royalties, the death mask. That's how it's 14 attractions all around the world.
So what's different about the Washington, D.C. location?
Washington, D.C. location is more interactive, has 44 presidents, only place you can meet them.
And learn a lot about the history.
A lot about the history.
Let's meet the presidents.
Let's go meet them.
So obviously I know who this guy is.
Father of our nation, George Washington.
Tell me something about George we don't know. We know he's the father of our nation. He was the only president unanimously elected by the Electoral College.
I bet you didn't know after he was elected, he only had one tooth left.
I did not know that.
Yep. He refused to wear dentures. He actually wore false teeth that were made out of hippopotamus, human, and elk teeth.
You're kidding.
No, serious.
Henry, these are so lifelike. The size is accurate, the attributes are accurate. How are they made?
Well, evidently there were no sittings, because all of them are deceased. So use watercolors and sketches to make their figures. There were no videos, anything.
How long does it take to make one of these?
About 6 months.
So I saw the special on HBO on John Adams. He was a feisty guy.
Yeah.
What else can you tell us about him?
Well, he's the first president to live in the White House. I bet you didn't know that.
I did not know that. There's something else about these two. They both died on the exact same day.
Same day. Sounds like a conspiracy to me, but I'm not going to say anything.
What are the odds of that? One of my favorite presidents.
Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. Here we go. Abraham Lincoln, first president to be assassinated while in office.
So you have other figures that weren't presidents.
We have a lot of other figures, such as Rosa Parks.
Let me have that seat.
We don't care.
I'm not going anywhere. Rosa didn't.
Me either.
I'm not afraid of the police.
Parks.
From civil rights to a lunar landing.
Lunar landing. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. Right
Look,
here.
Mom, I'm on the moon.
Hey!
To present day, Michelle and Barack Obama.
Michelle and Barack. You got game.
What a fun job you have.
Fun job. You get to meet a lot of great people, including yourself.
Likewise, great to meet you, Henry.
Great to meet you, too.
You too, Barack. Michelle?
You don't get it. You don't. Hey, that's my one.
Now let's learn a few fun facts about some of the other presidents. Like, did you know President Reagan began his career as a radio sports announcer in Davenport, Iowa? President Ford received offers to play for the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. President Eisenhower was the first president to have his inauguration broadcast on television. My fellow Americans, I want to thank Henry again for a wonderful tour. Now it's time to party with some celebrities. Coming up on Next Stop, we visit two world-class museums in our nation's capital. Washington, D.C. has a wide variety of wonderful museums. Today we're visiting Newseum, featuring over 5 centuries of news, and the International Spy Museum, celebrating the wonderful world of international espionage.
We're one of the only museums, I would venture to say the only museum in the world who changes an exhibit daily. These are our front pages. They are daily front pages, and they're from all 50 states and a selection of countries around the world. They change every day.
What are the highlights that we should definitely check out?
Well, you're going to definitely want to check out the Pulitzer Prize photography exhibit. The gallery there features photographs from all the Pulitzer winners, as well as some of the cameras used by the photographers. And it's a great place where you can really dig in and learn about not just see the photo itself, which is amazing and resonant enough, obviously, having won a Pulitzer, but you can dig in and get the story behind the photograph, get the journalists, the photojournalists' view and understand what was going on, how they were experiencing things.
What else should we see?
So you want to see the Berlin Wall. We have 8 pieces of the original Berlin Wall here on exhibit in Washington.
I don't think anybody alive today in our generation will ever forget the horrible tragedy of 9/11.
Absolutely not, and we have a special gallery here dedicated to 9/11 and understanding in particular how and why journalists did what they did on that day. But it also includes some amazing objects, the most iconic of which is surely the communications tower from the antenna from the top of the tower.
So from a little bit of sadness to joy, I see lots of kids in the interactive section.
Absolutely, yeah. We have this great interactive newsroom where you can see what it's like to be a TV reporter. Try and read the teleprompter, try and make your cue.
Hello, I'm John Olson. One of the highlights of a trip to Washington, D.C. would be seeing the president, of course, but few people will ever get that close. But don't worry, the latest big screen exhibit at the Newseum brings you as close as the president's photographer. The International Spy Museum has the largest collection of spy artifacts of any museum in the world, and it just so happens we have an actual former spy taking us on tour today. Let's go back to what got you into the world of spy and espionage.
Well, I went into that world at the height of the Cold War. The Cold War was getting underway, and I was approached by the agency, and we were very concerned about the Soviet Union, communism, all that business, and this is the 50s we're talking about, late 50s.
A lot of the stuff you actually used.
We're right here in disguise. I've used disguise. We're here near bugging equipment and so forth. I've used that sort of thing, not necessarily everything here, but certainly the elements of espionage that are depicted here I've been involved in, yes.
So we think of spies, I mean, everybody's intrigued with the life of a spy. You have James Bond.
Okay.
You think of it as the Bond experience.
All right.
How much of it is like Bond?
My easy answer is all of it. But of course, that's not quite true, is it? Okay.
I like this one because I used to watch Get Smart growing up, and I loved Maxwell Smart. He had a phone.
That was actually a very early cell phone, wasn't it?
Obviously, this is out of service. This isn't one of the newer technologies. How long does an artifact have to be out of service before it can come to the museum? Obviously, we don't want to see all the latest, greatest stuff here.
We use our own judgment in what we're putting out here. Everything you're seeing in here, has been described in the literature and the photographs.
So Peter, I love this one particularly because you actually wore a jacket like this.
That's true.
What was that like?
Okay. This is called the buttonhole camera, okay? Because the lens is in the buttonhole. In other words, if we could open and close the lens, you would see it like a little eye down there.
So this exhibit is really for the birds.
That's one way of putting it, but this is one of my favorite exhibits. One of these guys got a camera hanging off of him, and what that camera has is an automatic shutter release. So when the pigeon flies, the shutter release starts taking pictures.
Well, thank you for having us. This has been a lot
John,
of fun.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you. Coming up, a Washington, D.C. landmark and the home of our nation's first president. No trip to the Washington, D.C. area would be complete without a visit to one of the most famous homes in America, George Washington's Mount Vernon.
George Washington inherited the house from his half-brother Lawrence, and really this became his living biography. He added onto the house over the course of the 47 years that he lived here. This was his home, this was his land. He once wrote that there's no estate in United America that's as pleasantly situated as this, and we're inclined to agree when you look at the beautiful view of the Potomac River that he enjoyed and the care that he took in manicuring the lawns and really creating a statement, but also, being true to his roots. He was a Virginia farmer, and that's what he thought of himself first and foremost as a farmer.
Let's go check out his fields.
That sounds great. Let's see what he's growing today.
So what did he do with this thing?
Well, this is his 16-sided treading barn. So it was a very revolutionary concept for the time. He recognized that he was growing wheat and he needed a way to separate the wheat from the chaff in an efficient way. He also had horses that needed exercise. So they determined that if you ran the horses along the barn, you could make their hooves would knock the wheat off the chaff.
So these are the slaves' quarters.
These are the slaves' quarters for the household slaves. So the ones that were working in the kitchen, in the house, assisting the family. Others were living closer to the fields. In all, there were about 400 slaves that lived here during Washington's time. Now, when he died, he did include in his will the freeing of his slaves. However, several of the slaves that were living here on the property were Mrs. Washington's slaves and came down through her family.
This is so romantic.
Yes, it is indeed. The final resting place of George and Martha Washington, side by side. He's right here on the right and she's there on the left.
She outlived him by 3 years. Now,
That's
a lot
right.
of his family members are buried on property here.
There are 30 people buried from the Washington family that are buried here in all, yes.
It is so peaceful out here. There's
It
so
is.
much land, yet we're so close to D.C. How
It's
do you get here
incredible.
from D.C.?
It's actually quite easy to get here. We're 16 miles down the George Washington Memorial Parkway. So from the Lincoln Memorial to Mount Vernon, it's about 16 miles. You can do what you did and arrive by boat, which is a wonderful way, and certainly a way that many of Washington's guests would have.
I would choose the Spirit of Mount Vernon anytime.
It's a great way to go. You sit back, relax, enjoy the water, enjoy the beautiful Potomac, great scenery, have a nice tour, head back to Washington, D.C.
Did you know from President George Washington's administration all the way through FDR's, inaugurations were held on March 4th, with few exceptions. This was changed by the 20th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to January 20th to avoid the post-election lame duck period. I mean, think about it. It seems like a long time now, from November to January until the president takes office. Imagine adding a couple extra months. What's the incumbent president to do? If you didn't know this before, now you do. Many famous people have stayed here, from the Dalai Lama to Frank Sinatra to heads of state. This week, it houses Next Stop, the Madison Hotel. Jim, thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for being had.
So who was President Madison and who was Dolly? Let's start there.
President Madison played a very important role in colonial politics. He was actually one of the co-authors of the Federalist Papers. And of course, Dolly Madison played a real pivotal role in entertaining heads of state from all over the world at that time.
So President Kennedy was here for the opening of this hotel.
That is right. That is correct.
A lot of famous people have stayed here.
When it was opened by JFK in 1963, there wasn't really a hotel in Washington that had all the amenities and service and ambiance that the Madison had.
You walk in the lobby and you feel it. It's a big lobby, it's expansive. A lot of different things going on here. You got one restaurant on one side, one on the other. It's a cool property.
So when you walk into the Madison, you clearly get the feeling that, wow, I'm in Washington. All right, whether it's some of the design features that we have here, the artwork that you see on the walls, there is a real sense of place and a real sense of time when you come in.
And your rooms are nice, very spacious, ergonomically designed, but one of your suites was actually listed as one of the top 100 suites in a luxury magazine, I noticed.
That's right. We, again, we're fortunate to have 3 presidential suites, but very unique and, again, very Washington.
One of my favorite aspects about the Madison is your people, your staff. The minute we walked in, they knew who we were, and every time we walked through the door, they greeted us and said, "Welcome back," you know, almost by name every time. It's really impressive.
Fancy as this stage is, if the acting isn't good, it isn't good. Some people, you know, they want to have, you know, they want to be greeted every single time they come in, all right? And they, you know, they want that attention. Others don't. So we have to really be careful in how we read our guests to give them what they want, not what we think they want, you know, what they truly want.
Up next, blues legend Bobby Parker at Madam's Organ. Southern hospitality is alive and well in the Adams Morgan district of D.C. at Madam's Organ.
It's just a goofy play on the neighborhood, you know? Adams Morgan, Madam's Organ. I mean, I'm not exactly a rocket scientist here, you know?
I love it, though. You've had it for 20 years. You guys are celebrating your 20-year anniversary
20
this
years
year.
next month. And in fact, the guy you've got playing was the first band I hired 20 years ago, Bobby Parker.
Let's talk about Bobby Parker. This guy's a legend around here.
He's not just a legend here. I mean, I had Steve Winwood and Tom Petty call me, bring him out to meet them at a show. He's the only guy that the Beatles admit to stealing from.
Love it.
Led Zeppelin, note for note, Moby Dick. I mean, over the years he's played, started in '57, you know, this guy's been playing nonstop. You know, Washington's a town that, you know, not much is real. And there's so much acrimony politically, etc. I will tell you that when they come in here, Democrats, Republicans, ambassadors, you know, we've had heads of state in here. There are no arguments about politics. The music unites everybody.
I can tell
and
that.
it's just it's the kind of place, you know, that, as they said, Washington, a town where not much is real. This place is real.
And when I pulled up tonight, I saw the sign, "Sorry, we're open."
Pretty much says it all.
I knew it does say it all. This place is very tongue-in-cheek. You guys are all about humor, good times, good music, good food, just bringing people together.
You gave me something, baby, that's here to stay. You make me feel like I'm somebody. Ooh, as I go from day to day. Oh, you make me feel so good.
What happened with the Beatles?
McCartney was a good friend of mine. He still is.
He stole your riff, man.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
I'm glad you said it.
What's the riff?
It's
What
good.
song?
I feel fine.
What's the best memory for you?
The Apollo days with all the original artists. Lil Anthony, the Imperials, Frankie Lyman, Frankie Avalon.
So how do you keep it going? I mean, here we are. I'm not going to tell your age. We discussed this. But you're still bringing it. Your first hit was before I was born. How do you keep relevant? How do you keep the energy?
I love the music, man, and people make me happy out there. Let me hear you say yes.
Thanks for joining us on Next Stop from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We had some wonderful experiences, met some great people, and we learned a lot. We hope you did too. Thanks to this episode's sponsors, Destination DC and the Madison Hotel, Washington, D.C. As always, a warm thank you to our good friends and title sponsors, Alaska Airlines and the Alaska Airlines Visa Signature Card. Next stop. Where will we take you next? Make good memories, everybody. This week, it houses Next Stop, the Madison Hotel. Jim, thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks for being had.
So,
Sorry, let's start again. I'm sorry.
I like it. I saw John Adams' special on HBO. He was a very feisty guy.
Very feisty. Oh, yeah.
What else?
I was like, yeah, very feisty.